looking at some sorghum research with Josh Lofton, our Extension Cropping System Specialist. Josh, tell us about your research, what's set up here, and what you're looking at.
All right, so what we're looking at here is sugarcane aphids have been the primary thing that sorghum growers in the state have been concerned about, worried about, and having to manage over the last couple years. The biggest thing is one of the best decisions on how to manage sugarcane aphid is actually what hybrids you plant. And so that decision starts right now and during planting. And so we have a lot of options for growers that can select various hybrids from various companies that have some degree of sugarcane aphid tolerance. However, a lot of those have been tested in the lab. And a lot of those tolerance have been tested in the lab. And sometimes those hybrids that have really good tolerance don't yield. We saw that last year. One of a very good hybrid that had a very good tolerance yielded 20 bushels. And so that's what we're doing out here. We're taking sorghum hybrids that have known sugarcane aphid tolerance that we are familiar with, some that have just been released, and some that have a susceptibility, and we're actually looking at how well they yield in the field and what growers could potentially expect whenever they look specifically at those sugarcane aphid tolerant hybrids.
The great thing about Lahoma is that you do get some face time with the growers from around this area. They're asking you questions about replanting sorghum because of the recent weather events a few weeks ago. Talk about that.
Yeah, so because we had that warm spring, everybody wanted to get out and do something, and a lot of folks did. And so we have a lot of folks that have planted and it stayed in the ground for very long, and that cool snaps really made it to where it's not doing very well. The other unfortunate thing is we had a lot of folks that planted that caught these hailstorms that we've had the last couple of days. And so with those hailstorms and those cool weather, we have very spotty fields, very thin fields. And so a lot of growers are asking, do I replant or just keep what I have? And that's a very challenging thing to answer because it depends on so many things. The biggest thing that we're telling guys is if you have 20,000 plants out in the field and you have a good stand and it's nice and even, to keep it. I mean, that's a guaranteed plant that you have out there. If we plant now, one, we don't know if it's going to come up, and two, we're already in conditions that we're going to be maturing in middle to late July, and that's where we like to avoid. We don't typically get a whole lot of rain in July. It's usually 100 degrees in July, and it doesn't cool down much at night, and so that's what we like to avoid. So guys that have sorghum in the field, have 20,000 plants, and it looks really good, we're telling them to keep it because that's probably the best option for them.
And then in terms of scouting, what should folks keep in mind?
Yeah, it's never too early to start thinking about sugarcane aphids. Right now they're in far South Texas. But when we start getting into that July time frame and it's starting to look for sugarcane aphids out in your field, what we're telling growers is if you have sugarcane aphid population that's that big per leaf, that's our threshold. A lot of folks want to wait until they see these big colonies of sugarcane aphids, and by that point in time, you're in the thousands. Our critical threshold is about 100 sugarcane aphids per leaf blade on average across the field. And that's about what we're looking at, about the size of a dime on the sorghum leaf blades. So if you go around the field, the best scouting method is to pick about 5 places throughout your field, get about 5 plants in one of those places, and what we like to see is the lowest green leaf and the tallest green leaf, or the highest green leaf, youngest one if you want to say that, and look at those two. So we get on average about 40 or 50 plants around the field, count your aphids or estimate them, give a good number, and that's your average aphids per leaf. If you're over 100, go ahead and pull that trigger on your application.
Okay, terrific. We'll see you again soon, Josh. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.